So when we're looking at a spreadsheet in Excel, we want to make sure that it's something that we can use and easily analyze data. Now, looking at this spreadsheet, I call this a badly structured spreadsheet. And badly, of course, is a relative term. In some contexts, this is probably perfect for what somebody needed. But this is not the best way to organize your data when you want to do something like run a pivot table or just have a good visual for what's going on. So this is a 4-part video series here. In the first part, we're just going to we're going to assess this particular spreadsheet, and we're going to get a sense for what needs to be changed or what could be changed. So the first thing we want to do is have a look around the database or this spreadsheet, I should say, and make it look more like a database. And so let's just play around with it. The first thing we're seeing here is I'm seeing 2 header rows. We definitely want to reduce it to 1 header row, so there's just 1 header. And as you probably know, a header is just a label that describes the data in that particular column. So each of these, as you can see, there's 2 levels here of data describing the data down below. And so that's not the best practice, and it's not something you can easily import into a database or run a pivot table on, having 2 headers like that. So that's thing number 1. Thing number 2 is that we have some redundancy here. We have a total, and a total. So that's redundant, the fact that we have more than 1 total. And maybe more importantly, why is the same data appearing twice? It looks like this is a section. I'm going to use different colors here to kind of show how this could look. So looking at these kind of sections, you can kind of get a sense for how this data is structured by color coding it. This is just kind of a look and see right now for people who may have trouble visualizing what I'm saying. Notice how there's 3 sections. There's the consumer, the corporate, and the home office. And each one has the same subsections, which is first class, same day, second class, or standard class. This appears to be some sort of a shipping related transaction log or cost sheet. And then we have the same thing just repeats itself. So clearly there are 3 sections. We have an order ID, and then we have a dollar value or dollar amount. And then we have this redundancy. We also have the same, like I said, the same value appearing twice. Notice how this appears twice. Every single one, it appears once, and then it appears in the total area. Also, just doing a spot check, I like to do just kind of random samples. I don't see any rows that don't match that pattern. In other words, I don't see any rows with more than 2 values in them. And I don't see any rows whereby there's not the same value repeated a total of 2 times. And so that consistency means I can start making some assumptions about the data and the structure of the data, which I can use later. If there were some that had 3 values or 4 values, then we might take a different approach to cleaning up this data than what we're about to take here. But again, that's an important observation, is that we are seeing the same thing no matter where I go on the spreadsheet. I'm seeing the same pattern itself, just repeat itself again and again and again. Okay. Another thing we want to look at is we have a lot of blank cells here. So I counted, and there are actually 16 columns here, which is a lot of columns, given that there's so many blank cells. Definitely feels like we could reformat this and put it into a format that'd be much easier to work with. So large number of columns, a lot of redundancy, a lot of blank cells. We have double header or 2-level header. And then we also, the last thing I like to look at is this human readable? Is it easy to read for a person? Depending on the person, possibly you might say, yes, this is easy for you to read or understand. But imagine if this were collapsed to a far fewer number of columns. It would be that much easier for you to read and play with. So the last thing I'm going to do here before we start the work here is actually to look at what would be the ideal columns here. So I see that there's a segment, which looks like it's consumer, like I said, corporate, or home office. And there's the ship mode, which are these, and again, that repeats itself. And then, of course, there's the total column, okay, which is a redundant column. It repeats itself. So before we start actually restructuring, I'm going to go ahead and prepare the spreadsheet for that. And I'm going to go ahead and insert 3 new columns here. And I'm going to call them segment order ID. Actually, we already have order ID. Ship mode. And let's just call it sales. Now, that might be, maybe this is not a sales figure. Maybe this is a cost of shipping. I don't know, but we're going to call it sales for the purposes of this conversation. You might call it something else. And then I'm also going to want to freeze. I like to always freeze the columns and rows. So if we go up to View and click on Freeze Panes, that way, once we do eliminate these redundant headers, we're going to have this in the top row there. And also, if we did try to scroll to the right, it's not going to move this first column here. Okay, so now we're a little bit more in better shape. I'm also going to just highlight all 3 columns so that I can resize them at the same time. I'm going to center that data, and I think that's good for right now. I think I'm going to go ahead and start playing with the data, so I'll see you in the next video.